Welcome to Make It Make Sense. I'm Granthermes. Today in the show, we are talking about something that I think is going to get lost in the shuffle of this busy news cycle, especially as we hit Trump's tariff deadline today. And I know you're getting this episode Friday morning instead of Thursday afternoon, which is also going to push back today's regularly scheduled longer interview until tomorrow. There were some technical difficulties with the episode yesterday, so instead of just dropping it late at night when you wouldn't listen to it, I figured I'd catch you this morning. Anyway, this week, a Senate committee led by Republicans voted to pass a bill written by a Republican that then pissed off the president. It's a bill that would ban members of Congress, the president, and vice president from trading or profiting from the stock market. And I want to talk about this for a number of reasons that I'll get into here, but mainly because we're in an age right now of corruption and grift, and this bill seems to be something that is at the very least pushing back on that, and it's a long time coming. So I want to talk about what this bill does, what the fight over it is, who's fighting about it, and why it's only scratching the surface of a really big issue in Congress. But first, make sure that you're following or subscribed to the Make It Make Sense podcast on whatever app you listen to it on. Like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications on YouTube if you're a watcher there. Sign up for the Make It Make Sense Substack, where I've got a brand new article all about 1 year of Make It Make Sense, of me doing this show, the ways that I have changed and grown as a journalist, what that experience has been like, and what I hope comes next. But to get access to that, it is $5 a month. You get access to that and a whole bunch of other great articles. And as always, share the show on social media. It's Mims Newspod. That's MIMS Newspod, all one word, on every platform. I am at Granthermes on Twitter and Bluesky, and at Granthermes TV on everything else. All right, let's get to the show. We're heading into the final stretch of summer, and let's face it, you need some new sunglasses. Your old ones are scraped or scuffed, or maybe, like I did, you sat on them because you left them in the car, and it's time to replace them so you can finish out the summer in style. That's where Akila comes in. Independently designed and handcrafted in LA, they offer timeless style, uncompromising quality, all without the inflated price tag. And their styles are unisex and look great. I really like their Essential line. It's a cool throwback look that really fits my day-to-day style. I can throw them on and know that they'll fit my fit. And you can feel good about wearing Akila sunglasses too, whether it's the UV blocking sunglasses, the blue light clear lenses, or the prescription eyewear. It's all made from 50% recycled materials, including recycled lenses, eco-friendly plant-based plastics, and it's shipped to you in sustainable, plastic-free, biodegradable packaging. Plus, all Akila frames come back with a 1-year warranty, just in case anything should happen to them. You just ship them back and they'll fix them up, or they'll get you some new ones. So right now, you can get an exclusive 10% off your next pair of Akila glasses, their highest discount of the summer, when you use the code MIMS25 at checkout. That's MIMS25 on your entire order. Now, Make It Make Sense does get a cut of that, but, it's just another reason to go check them out. Protect your eyes, support the show. It's a win-win. So visit Akila.la, that's Akila, and use the promo code MIMS25 at checkout. Akila, unisex handmade sunglasses from LA. Independent style meets unbeatable prices. Elevate your look with modern eyewear concepts. All right, let's get on with the episode. So there is a lot going on in the news right now. Specifically in the political world, the war in Gaza has officially been deemed a genocide, as pictures of thousands of starving people have begun to spread around. The president's tariff deadline is tomorrow, and so far he's barely done anything to meet the promises he made the last time he promised to enact tariffs. The Epstein Files story got another boost in the headlines after Trump said he knew of at least one of Epstein's victims had been trafficked out of Mar-a-Lago. And then there was a mass shooting at a Manhattan office building this week that is going to jumpstart new conversations about guns, wealth inequality, mental health, and return to work policies. So with all that going on, there's a story that happened this week that it would be pretty easy to miss, but I don't want you to miss it. You see, on Wednesday this week, a panel of senators passed what's called the Preventing Lawmakers from Owning Securities, Exchanges, and Investments Act, or the Pelosi Act. It passed 8-7, with every Democrat voting for it, despite its name, and every Republican voting against it, except its Republican author, Missouri Senator Josh Hawley. Now, the bill would ban members of Congress, their spouses, the president, and vice president from owning or trading stocks. It's called the Pelosi Act, or it was, because former Speaker of the House and current Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi has become the poster child for what looks an awful lot like insider trading. I mean, there's even a thing that was developed called the Pelosi Tracker that mirrored her and her husband's stock trades to the S&P 500, and they're basically identical, except she's making a ton more money versus the average trade. Here she is getting pretty heated this week on CNN after Trump accused her of insider trading.
Ridiculous. In fact, I very much support the stop the trading of members of Congress. Not that I think anybody's doing anything wrong. If they are prosecuted and they go to jail. But because of the confidence it instills in the American people, don't worry about this. But I have no concern about the obvious investments that had been made over time. I'm not into it. My husband is, but it isn't anything to do with anything insider. But the president has his own exposure, so he's always projecting. And let's not give him...
Now, I'll get to Trump a little later here, but for her to say it's my husband who's into stocks and not me is a pretty lame excuse for somebody who's been in power as long as she has. Pelosi later said that she is in favor of this bill, which kind of seems like small potatoes now that she's made her money, but a step in the direction of accountability is still a step in the right direction. The bill has been amended to instead be called the Honest Act, but Pelosi is still going to be the namesake target of it. And I'll get to the amendment a little later, but I want to lay out just how big of an issue alleged insider trading is in Congress. You see, how that works is members of Congress who sit on powerful committees like Homeland Security or Foreign Affairs or Appropriations or Judiciary, but really kind of any committee, get routine updates on industry or market outlooks. Some of them are classified, or they meet with lobbyists who are pushing for new laws or a new product they've got coming out or a merger they want done. And all those plans, if they're not classified, they certainly aren't public. Or members of Congress are working on a bill they know will become law that could have a huge impact on certain industries or kinds of companies. And the work on the bill isn't public yet. And then wouldn't you know it, they buy up a bunch of stock or they sell off a bunch as that bill gets introduced or maybe signed, and they make a killing. It's how you have members of the House and Senate who, despite making $174,000 on their government salary, can be worth tens to hundreds of millions of dollars when they weren't like that before they got elected. And we know that some members of Congress are trading a lot. Liberal California Representative Ro Khanna takes the top spot this year so far. He's traded more than 2,000 stocks worth more than $41 million. According to findings from Capital Trades, conservative Texas Representative Michael McCall has traded more than $37 million in the stock market this year, and Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal has traded more than $34 million. And according to that same report, 2025 is set to be a record year for congressional trading, with more than 7,800 trades so far. The record is around 14,000 that was set a few years ago, but this year is on pace to beat that. And alleged congressional insider trading has become so lucrative that there are even apps you can download that help you trade like members of Congress. One called Autopilot, that was made by the same people who invented the Pelosi Tracker, lets you follow the trades of members of Congress and then will trade for you automatically. Another, called Dub, was profiled by Forbes earlier this year and follows what members are reporting publicly because there is a law that forces them to report their trades publicly. It's called the Stop Trading on Congressional Knowledge Act, or STOC. And as a side note here, the bills where they make some sort of junior staffer or a group of interns sit there with a whiteboard because they want the bill to be named something, so they have to come up with a clever acronym. It's got to stop. I don't know what we're doing here. Just call the bill what it does. We're wasting time. Anyway, the STOC Act was passed in 2012, and it said that members of Congress, their staff, and some executive branch positions have to disclose their trades 30 to 45 days after they're made. But there's no real enforcement of that law, at least not in any way that has made a ton of a difference. But also, 30 to 45 days is a long time between when a member of Congress might know and would know something would happen versus after they've made the trade, which brings us back to the bill we're talking about this week, because you see, the Pelosi Act, or the Honest Act, is a big step away from that. It's a full-stop ban on congressional and top executive trading. And passing it, at least off this panel, angered the Senate's richest member, Florida's Rick Scott, a man worth more than $550 million who did not come into his seat with that kind of money. Here's the exchange between him and the bill's author, Republican Josh Hawley.
Right? So this idea that we're going to attack people because they make money is wrong. Is absolutely wrong. We should cherish all of our different backgrounds. Every one of us has a different background. I've got a business background. But what I was just accused of is making money, and somehow I can't be fair and do things the right way. So I think it's disgusting what is going on here. So, but, I agree with, I completely agree with you. We've got to stop people from trading stocks. But this is way different. This is an attack against the president, attack against the vice president. That's what this is. So I think it's wrong.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to correct that Senator Scott said that if you have a small business, you'd be forced to sell it. Small businesses are explicitly exempted under this bill. The 1,200 employees, they are not covered. If you have a small business, you can maintain your ownership in that business throughout the entire time. And I don't mind anybody being rich. What I mind is people getting rich while they're here trading stock, which I think we can all agree on. And this bill would put a stop to.
So 1,200 employees. I had one company with 285,000 employees. That was publicly traded, but when it was private, it was not liquid. I had a variety of manufacturing companies that had a lot of employees. That stock was illiquid. I mean, if any of you bought and sold companies, you do not have, somebody's going to buy today. I know I can walk out the door and there'll be somebody to buy the company. So we're going to make people sell things when it might be an absolute worst time to sell something. And they busted their butt to go build that business, and then they want to come up here and serve, and then we say, well, you got to give up your net worth. That's wrong.
It was a pretty wild thing to see, especially because Republicans have been in such lockstep with each other on most other things, and that exchange also got Trump's attention. Now, at first, Trump was for this bill. He liked it because it was hitting Democrats, namely, by name, literally, Pelosi, who he doesn't like because she was the Speaker of the House, who impeached him twice. But then he wasn't for this bill, and then neither were the other Republicans, because while they like the idea of holding presidents and vice presidents accountable and banning them from trading their stocks, they just don't like the idea of doing that to the ones who are in office now. And in order to pass this thing, Democrats allowed a carve-out that would allow Donald Trump and J.D. Vance to continue to trade on the stock market should this bill pass. Now, it's also unclear, I need to say, that if J.D. Vance should become president at some point, whether it's 2028 or later, if it would still apply to him, if he'd get grandfathered in, but the carve-out still happened, which you'd think Trump would be happy about, except he wasn't. He went on Truth Social, his social media site, and posted this screed about Josh Hawley, accusing him of being part of a Democratic plot of sabotage, a pawn in the Democrats' efforts to target him. He said the bill was a good one for Nancy Pelosi and her husband, which he put in quotes, which is a callback to a grotesque lie that Pelosi's husband, who was nearly killed by an intruder with a hammer, was instead nearly beat to death by a gay lover. And then he called Hawley a second-tier senator. It was a lot. And it really seemed like Trump thought this bill at first was only targeting Pelosi, and then later said that he'd actually been getting calls from people who said that the bill would force him to give up Mar-a-Lago, which raises a couple questions. First, who is calling the president and talking about these things? Second, it doesn't do that, and why would he believe that? But regardless, now, Hawley said that he had a short conversation with Trump, and they made up a bit, and Hawley said the president still supports the bill, although as I'm recording this, the president hasn't publicly said anything about that yet. Also, for Trump to attack Hawley like this is really something, because Hawley is a vocal supporter of Trump and is the author of the bill that I talked about on Tuesday that would give out Trump rebate checks. And then he said that they would actually only go to Trump voters. Here's a clip of him saying that.
So this is not going to the hedge fund managers or all the Biden voters. This is not going to the Wall Street kingpins. They don't need any of it. This is going to the Trump blue-collar voters, the people who Joe Biden crushed, the people who didn't get a raise under Joe Biden for 4 long years, the people who cannot afford their gas because Joe Biden shut down our energy, who can't afford their groceries because Joe Biden drove up the price of everything. And it is a message from us to them, from Trump to these folks, that he is here to deliver for them. You know, I got the idea from the president. I mean, the president said maybe we ought to do a little rebate. Great idea. It tells our people, the working people, that we are here for you and these policies are going to benefit them. And we're in it for the long haul. These Trump policies are here to stay.
So it's not like Hawley is some kind of Democrat in sheep's clothing against Trump. But Trump isn't wrong about attempts to investigate him for insider trading. Democrats called for an investigation earlier this year into Trump and his trades, and there's been a lot of scrutiny on Trump's investments into cryptocurrency, including this week, after he signed a bill that makes it easier for banks to issue cryptocurrency. Trump has personally, this year alone, made more than $1 billion off crypto, and the White House put out what they called a roadmap for crypto earlier this week. All of that means is that a president who had advanced knowledge of, say, the roadmap, the bill signing, the bill itself, had the opportunity to make a lot of money that the average person couldn't. And it looks an awful lot like insider trading. So why he'd be upset about this bill, given that it has this carve-out, I don't really know. But the question now is what happens next? Well, it has to go to the full Senate for a full vote, and then it has to go over to the House. And right now it's unclear if it even has the votes to pass the Senate. The chairman of the powerful Senate Ethics Committee, which is Oklahoma's James Lankford, a Republican who voted against the bill, said he would be in charge of enforcing it, seeming to imply that he wouldn't enforce it. Also, the House isn't back until September because Speaker Mike Johnson sent everyone home to avoid talking more about the Epstein files. But there is at least one representative, Anna Paulina Luna from Florida, who said she wants to bring up the Honest Act for a vote this fall. Now, a lot could happen between now and September, but banning members of Congress from trading is really popular, and I would venture to guess that it's going to stay popular this fall. Something like 86% of Americans, including 88% of Democrats and Republicans, support banning congressional members from trading stocks, and that's according to a poll that was done 2 years ago by the University of Maryland. Opponents of this bill say it would harm wealthy congressional families from being able to make money, or it would stop people from running for office, which, yeah, I think that's kind of the point. Members of Congress shouldn't see their offices and the privilege of representing their fellow Americans as a way to get rich. I don't think that's a controversial thing to say. If they're worried about that, they should both lobby for more pay to attract better people, the same thing the rest of the world has to do, or do a little introspection about what they think civic service is really about. But my guess is they already know what they think, they just don't want to have to say it out loud. All right. That is it for today's episode. Please rate and review the show on whatever podcast app you listen to it on. Like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and leave a comment below if you're a watcher on YouTube. Sign up for the Make It Make Sense Substack. It's just $5 a month. It really helps support the show, and you get access to a bunch of great content. And as always, share the show on social media. It's MIMS News Pod. That's MIMS News Pod, all one word on every platform. I am at Granthermes on Twitter and Bluesky, and at Granthermes TV on everything else. Thank you so much for listening today. I know it's a day late, and I will talk to you tomorrow